With SEC Media Day starting up this week, I wanted to take a few minutes and just talk about the quarterback situation within the conference as a whole and kind of talk about the different tiers of quarterbacks that we have in the SEC because there are a bunch of different storylines going into not just Media Days, but into the 2021 season. And we've covered a lot of it on this channel before, a lot of film breakdowns and kind of just comparisons of each quarterback. And we're going to continue doing that, but I want to talk about just some storylines as we head into Media Days this week. And I think you have a bunch of different storylines for the simple fact there's a lot of turnover in the SEC this year, more turnover than usual, which we're going to get into. But before we talk about all the storylines and what's the biggest storyline coming into this 2021 season, I just want to encourage you to consider subscribing to our YouTube channel if you have any quarterback interest. We talk any quarterback related content, whatever it may be. Any quarterback content is fair game here. So let's dive into the actual meat and potatoes of things because I think we got 4 tiers of kind of big time storylines right now heading into the SEC. We have the returning dudes, so the returning starters, the guys who started last year who are returning this year in our starters. We only have a few of those, which we'll talk about in a second. We have new starters who are maybe still in a competition, even though, like Bryce Young being an example, like he's starting this year, so he's a new starter. He'd be one of those examples. We have a few new starters coming in that have already been named, and then we have open competition, which the majority, about half the conference, is in an open competition right now, which we'll get into. We'll spend the majority of our time in there because that's where the majority of the storylines kind of lie. And then I made a different tier or a different storyline, Auburn, because they are returning one of a starting quarterback who started for 2 years, but they also brought in TJ Finley. So I think they kind of fit into the returning dudes section and then the open competition section. It's kind of a different case. And you can throw in Mississippi State there too if you want, but we're going to get into that in a second. So let's go over the guys actually coming back, the returning dudes. We got Matt Corral for Ole Miss, JT Daniels from Georgia, Connor Bazelak from Missouri, and then we can throw in Will Rogers if you want to, but I think he's still in a pretty close competition right now with Jack Abraham, and then Bo Nix, of course, returning starter, but TJ Finley coming in. I still think it's probably Bo Nix's job to lose, and he is returning starter. He does have over 30 plus touchdowns. Over 40 touchdowns potentially. We got between 30 and 40 touchdowns in the SEC, so he still is a dude returning, but you could probably throw him in that open competition because TJ Finley is a good quarterback. So let's talk about, just for the sake of this tier, let's go into Matt Corral, JT Daniels, and Connor Bazelak, because I think those are your 3 best returning starters. Connor Bazelak is someone I'm really looking forward to for the simple fact he kind of bust on the scene last year and kind of helped Mizzou take a next step in the SEC. So I'm really excited to see how he develops and how he continues as just his development overall. He can move a little bit, and he just put Mizzou in a good situation and a position to win. Coach JT Daniels and Matt Corral, probably your top 2 guys, top 2 returning starting quarterbacks in the SEC. Matt Corral, we've had several video breakdowns of him before, and I think if he can just kind of limit that snowball effect, I think we can see a big 2021 season, a second year under Lane Kiffin. They've had a full offseason program, so I think Matt Corral is going to be even better. And then with JT Daniels coming up as well, I think the fact he only played in 4 games last year, but the offense was tremendously better when he was in there. They're going to be able to open the field a bit more. And then with Gilbert, the transfer from LSU, the tight end, who they're going to be using as a receiver, I believe, I think he's going to help Daniels take the next step. So I think even though there's only a few returning guys, I think they're really good quarterbacks, and they're going to help the overall competition in the SEC as it relates to the quarterback position. Let's go on to the next tier, the new starters. And I only have 3 of them right now. I have Bryce Young from Alabama. I have Emory Jones from Florida, even though he hasn't technically been named the starting quarterback. Then we have Luke Doty from South Carolina, and he has been named the starting quarterback. So that's kind of our second tier. Of course, with Emory Jones and Bryce Young both having to replace guys that were drafted in the NFL draft, first and second round picks from the schools, there's going to be a lot of expectations that both are very good quarterbacks, and actually pretty similar quarterbacks as well. I'm excited for Bryce Young to replace Mac Jones at Alabama, and I expect him to come in there, and there are going to be some growing pains, I'm sure, but we expect him to be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. I kind of expect that with Emory Jones too, for the simple fact Dan Mullen is the head coach, and I kind of trust any quarterback with Dan Mullen, and Emory Jones has been there several years, and I think he's going to have a hell of a season. I'm really excited for him. And then Luke Doty from South Carolina. They have a transfer. Jason Brown came in from St. Francis, and I guess Doty has been named the starting quarterback, but still, Jason Brown is there. He's a good quarterback, but right now they're riding with Luke Doty, very good athlete. You want to see some improvement from the throwing part of things, which is makes up the quarterback position, but he's a talented guy as well. So right now we've talked about our returning dudes, That's kind of one of the storylines. We've talked about the new starters. We could talk about Bryce Young and Emory Jones. We could talk about all these guys. We could do a full video of these guys, and we have. So I do encourage you to go back and watch the full videos we've done of each guy, and we'll continue to do. But let's go into where it kind of really gets fun, the open competition of things. And I want to talk about Auburn first. We're going to throw in, Auburn was the fourth kind of storyline, the fourth tier of quarterbacks. I want to throw them in here because I think they're in a good situation quarterback-wise. I just put out a video of Bo Nix of what he needs to do to kind of take the next step as a quarterback and kind of stuff he needs to kind of eliminate to be a good quarterback because he's very talented. But you're bringing in TJ Finley, who is another very talented quarterback and one of the strongest arms in potentially all of college football. And so we have two different quarterbacks. We have Bo Nix, who is a more athletic quarterback, but he can still rip it, has all the talent in the world. Then we have TJ Finley, who likes to stand in the pocket and just rip it. So I think Bo Nix is probably the guy heading in, but I think Auburn fans should feel a bit better about their quarterback room than maybe they have historically because TJ Finley is there. I do think Finley has a lot of potential to be a good quarterback as well. So that is Auburn. I think they have a very interesting storyline. We could talk about them for a while, but let's get on to the other teams. Kentucky. So they got three guys battling for the starting quarterback position. Again, we've done a video in Kentucky, several breakdowns of these guys. Joey Gatewood, the former Auburn quarterback. Bo Allen, who got some playing time last year, and then Will Levis, the former Penn State quarterback, who's had playing time the past few years. And Levis and Gatewood are similar guys. They're bigger guys. They're athletic. They can use their legs. And Bo Allen is probably more of a natural thrower. But I do think that whoever wins the starting position, I think Kentucky is going to be better than they have been in the past at the quarterback position. Just from things that we've been seeing, whoever does win, we expect that quarterback position to be elevated than last year. But again, very interesting storyline. Three guys competing for that job. Tennessee, we could talk about Tennessee position, the Tennessee quarterback situation for 30 minutes probably, right? They've got like four guys right now. They just had a guy get kicked off the team. So there's a lot of moving parts of the Tennessee quarterback the Tennessee quarterback situation, and this may be the most interesting situation all of the SEC as relates to the quarterback position because there's so many guys. They have a new coaching staff. It's a whole new offensive system, and so we're really trying to see who is going to kind of gravitate and take hold of the reins. We have Joe Milton, of course, from Michigan. We have Hendon Hooker from Virginia Tech, Harrison Bailey, and then Brian Maurer. So guys that have been there in the past. So again, we've put out a lot of Tennessee videos. You can go back and find those, but Tennessee, very a big storyline to keep track of. Texas A&M, also a big storyline coming off the success they had last year. They are also replacing a pretty high draft pick at the quarterback position. I think Kellen Mond was drafted in the second round by the Vikings. So they have Haynes King and then Zach Calzada, who are trying to replace Kellen Mond. Excuse me, my brain went murky for a second because I'm blabbering. But both those guys are good, talented quarterbacks, and A&M just needs a guy that can just lead them and help them take that next step. Again, we've had several videos of these two guys, and we will come back and talk about all these guys once there's a quarterback named the starting quarterback. We'll come back and hit more videos. Let's keep moving on because there's a few other teams that have really interesting rooms. Arkansas, KJ Jefferson, the name is slipping me right now. I'm so sorry, but he is the quarterback from Marshall High School, played in my district. Actually, I'm old. Years ago, I was there. So a stud. I'm so sorry the name is slipping me, but KJ Jefferson is probably the guy. Malik Hornsby just came to me. But KJ Jefferson seems to be the guy moving forward. But again, Malik Hornsby is an absolute phenomenal athlete. And so who knows what happens there. I think it's an interesting situation. I think Arkansas could be pretty good this year. But I like Jefferson as well. And I like Malik Hornsby. LSU, man, just so talented. If they get some consistent play from the defense, I think the quarterback is going to be pretty good. Last year, the defense was the issue. I think they're going to get that cleaned up. I like Max Johnson. I like Miles Brennan as well, but I like Max Johnson. He's just a gamer, was able to go in, win the last two games. And not that Miles Brennan played bad when he was a starting quarterback. He actually did pretty well. It wasn't his fault they went 1-2. But I just think Max Johnson is probably the future. They have a deep room. Even with TJ Finley transferring, they have a good situation at the quarterback position and just so much talent around them. So I think they could have a lot of success next year, whoever wins that starting job. And Mississippi State, I want to talk about them briefly too, for the simple fact Will Rogers showed some good things last year. Struggled in the spring game. We don't put too much stock in the spring game, but Jack Abraham had a pretty good spring game and has started for the past, I think, 3 years at Southern Miss before transferring to Mississippi State. And as we got started covering a lot of G5 quarterbacks, and Jack Abraham has had a lot of success and is a consistent guy, so you know what you're getting from. So I think that position, I think that quarterback starting position is pretty close. I think it's closer than maybe people realize or anticipate it would be, especially Leach's comments after the spring game said something along the lines that, hey, it's still a competition, it's wide open, whatever it may be. So that's one to also keep track of. So again, we've got about one, and then of course Vanderbilt has a competition going on. I'm sorry, I just don't have a lot of info on Vanderbilt. But we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then if you include Auburn, 8 quarterback competitions going on right now, the SEC. So those are the main storylines. I know I want to talk about the guys returning, the new starters who haven't been named yet but are probably guaranteed starters, and then the actual competition is going on right now. So we'll have a lot more coming as fall camp comes along. A lot of fun storylines to keep track of. But I want to hear from you. What are your favorite storylines going into the SEC 2021 season? What quarterback competition are you most looking forward to? Are you more excited about some of the new starters? Are you more excited about some of the guys returning back who are already starters? Or are you kind of like me and just looking forward to all these quarterback competitions developing and seeing who wins? I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts, and we'll see you next time on our next quarterback-related video.